graduated from Ryerson University with a Bachelor of Science in Medical Physics and is currently working towards a certificate in Human Resources with a focus on diversity and inclusion in the workplace, which is really what we're focusing on with today's event. And she's also currently the Department Assistant at the Faculty of Science at Ryerson University, where she focuses part of her work on managing multiple resources on equity, diversity, and inclusion, EDI, in science. Let's have a big welcome for Anna Sofía. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here, Anna Sofía. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Oh my God, there's a big light in front of me. I feel like I'm gonna be on TV right now. They put me this microphone, everything. I'm standing here feeling like I'm Wonder Woman. So my name is Anna Sofía Barrows, and I feel like I am going to be saving the world one sip at a time. I love coffee. How many of you here like coffee? Of course. So your day has to start with a sip of coffee. So a little bit about me. I graduated from Ryerson University with a bachelor's in medical physics. Do any of you know what medical physics is? Or anyone wants to take a guess on what medical physics is? No? Okay. So medical physics is a physics degree with a focus on medicine. The reason why I went to that degree was because I really wanted to become a doctor. It was what I wanted to do. I was super excited about it. I was going to be a surgeon. But I really liked math. So medical physics brings together physics into medical problems, such as my thesis was focused towards treating cancer with radiation. After I started my physics degree, I realized that I did not like to study biology. I love math, I love physics, but I had such a hard time memorizing all the parts of the body and all of those things. And as I kept going through my degree, I kept realizing that there were so many barriers for people to get scientific careers, especially women. So I'm pretty sure all of you know, and I can see right now the audience, women are half of the population in this world. Why is it that in science we are not seeing women represented adequately? We're not seeing women represented adequately, but what happens with all of the different minorities? What happens with persons with disabilities? What happens with visible minorities? What happens with Aboriginal peoples? We're not seeing them represented in our scientific careers. So if me as a woman, I'm struggling with it, what is happening to the rest of the world? So after I finished my degree, I decided to start a certificate in human resources, focusing towards equity and diversity in the workplace. So I want to bring my scientific background and this human resource background and bring it together and start working towards achieving diversity in science. Another thing that I do is I take photos. I take many, many photos. I find that photography is great because for my physics background, photography is all about lenses. It's all about focal points and all of that is physics. So for me, that's easy peasy. It's lemon squeezy. And what I want to do in life is I want to be able to overcome all of those systemic barriers, work towards getting all the systemic barriers out, and have everyone included in science. So if you were here from the beginning, Rachel was talking about what unconscious bias is. So unconscious bias are assumptions that we jump without thinking. So imagine you're walking on the street and you see an older man with 2 children. Your first assumption is going to be that that's the grandfather of those kids. But maybe that's not true. Maybe that's the father of the kids, not the grandfather of the kids. Maybe that's just an uncle. Unconscious bias is those conclusions that we jump at without even thinking about it. We all have those biases, and those are the hardest for us to work through it. One of the science things, I work a lot towards doing unconscious bias training, and sadly, whenever you do unconscious bias, you realize those biases, and then 40 minutes later, we forget about them. So the thing with unconscious bias is we have to start working towards them day by day. Microaggressions. Microaggressions are those subtle little aggressions that we say to people without realizing. For example, I am Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I very constantly get jokes about, oh, did you jump the border? Or right now, sadly, I can say that with the North American government that is happening below us, a lot of comments such as like, people are bad hombres, are happening here, and I get them. I get them all the time. And those little aggressions start affecting people day by day. So then we end up having what is called death by 1,000 cuts. So those little things do not allow us to work as good and great as we would want to. The stereotype threat. Stereotype threat, it's that fear that we have as if we're being seen under a stereotype lens. So, for example, you are from insert cultural background, you must be really good at math. Or you are so tall, you should probably be a basketball player. Now, before I keep going with my life as how I came to Canada, I told you that I was born and raised in Mexico. And I would want to hear, I was an athlete, and I would want to hear from one person, what sport do you think I did? One person that is not my brother. Yeah?
Basketball.
Basketball? That's a good guess. But no, I did figure skating. In Mexico, a warm country, I was a figure skater. And figure skating gave me so many wonderful things. Figure skating taught me to have a purpose, have a goal. I was able to pursue that goal, work towards that goal. It taught me that hard work pays off. It really pays off. And it taught me to be persistent. If you're working hard towards something and you don't achieve it, if you work twice as hard, you might be able to achieve that. And it taught me how to be disciplined. It was really great for me to be able to balance my school and skating at the same time. But skating also brought me one bad thing, and it was the first time I started to experience microaggressions. It made me very insecure about my body. I am 5'8", I am Mexican, and I kept hearing from coaches that I was not thin enough, that I was too tall. And all of those things at the age of 12 start getting to your brain. So followed by that, I came to Canada here in 2012. My mom was unfortunately in a shooting back in Mexico, so we grabbed our stuff, 2 weeks notice, moved to Canada. It was a tough transition, just coming such short. I was in high school at the time, and I came to Canada, finished my high school diploma, and then decided to pursue physics. So now, I was not fitting in figure skating because I was too tall and I was not thin enough. I come to Ryerson, I decided to join the varsity team, the figure skating, and now I was too tall, I was not thin enough, I was Mexican, and I was a scientist in figure skating, which all of those things were nothing that was happening there. So I did not fit in there either. I started my physics degree, and I started to get messages of people telling me that I didn't look like a physicist. So one day I got my Instagram handle is Sofía the Physicist, and I got one person out of nowhere, I don't even know who this person was, sent me this long paragraph telling me how I did not look like a scientist. And he hoped that I was actually a scientist because otherwise it would be very shameful for me to be calling myself one, but based on my Instagram, I did not look like one. So I responded to him asking what scientists look like. And he pretty much told me that if I was a scientist, I should have been devoted just to science and not have a life other than that. I should not be talking about anything in my life, and that apparently I care too much about how I looked. Feel free to go into my Instagram. I am pretty sure it's not all about me. It's like the silliest Instagram you can imagine, and there's a lot of science communication stuff in it. So that started to happen, and then I got married. My husband has a mathematics and a computer science degree and master's. And whenever we were together, people would start asking both of us, asking him what he did. And people would be fascinated with what he did. And either people would not ask me what I did, or when they asked me, they would be surprised that I would say that I was in physics. They would tell me, quote unquote, oh, you look like you were in fashion. Oh, you look like you were in communications. And it's usually, people think that those are compliments, but sadly they're not. There's not such a way that scientists should be looking like. So then after that, we had an EDI report. Ryerson released an EDI report stating the state of how Canada is looking towards EDI in STEM. EDI is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And CBC invited Dr. Imogen Ko, who's the Dean of the Faculty, and myself for an interview. And in that interview, they called me first. They asked me about my experience. I shared with them the exact same things that I'm sharing with you right now. And they asked me to send a photo of me. So I first sent just a photo of me public speaking. And they told me, quote unquote, that they wanted a photo where I looked more like a scientist. They were writing an article about these issues, and they asked me for a photo where I look more like a scientist. So I sent that photo of the quarter, where I'm with my supervisor in front of my poster on the day of my thesis. And they told me that it was not scientist enough. So I sent a photo of me holding my degree that says Bachelor of Science in Medical Physics, and it was still not sciencey enough. My thesis was written on a computer. It was all computer simulations. And they asked me to send a photo of me in a lab. My research was not in a lab. Not all science is in a lab. So they ended up taking a photo of me in front of a banner. Apparently that's scientific enough. So yeah, that happened. And what I realized is that if me as a woman, I'm going through all of those things, what's happening with all of the different minorities? What's happening with persons with disabilities? What are we doing to help people with this? Right now, I keep hearing people tell their stories about how hard it was to become a scientist, but we need more people working towards fixing those things. We need science. Science is for everyone, not just for certain people, not just for certain groups, it's for everyone. So I believe that one of the main things that we can start changing in our interior lives is our support systems. Support systems comes from family, friends, institutions that we work for. I very likely can say that my husband at home, he's super supportive, he's a feminist, he is wonderful in that sense, very helpful. My siblings there, oh by the way, all these photos have been taken by me, unless I am in the photo, then obviously it's not me. My siblings have been very supportive. My parents and my in-laws very supportive. They are all here today, I'm very lucky to say that. And my boss, the dean of the faculty. One of the main things that we have to do is, if you're in a position of power, you should advocate for equity and diversity. Science, communications, media, anything you're working towards, make sure you advocate towards equity and diversity. If you are interested in learning more about equity and diversity in science, feel free to go into our website. It's ryerson.ca/EDI-STEM. Thank you so much for everything. Oh, sorry, lastly, before I finish, if there are any women here who are working towards their PhDs or are in their PhDs, we are recruiting speakers towards soapbox science. Rachel was one of our soapbox scientists last year, and it's an event in which women scientists step on a soapbox and literally just talk about their research in the streets of Toronto. So it's really great. If you're interested, feel free to apply. Thank you.